All right, who is ready for some brand new irrational fears? Because after a 14-year break, Final Destination is back, and yes, death is still finding the most creative and painful ways to hunt down those who skipped their turn.
But Death doesn't like it when you mess with his plans.
Good luck.
Hey everyone, I'm Mariana, this is Impression Blend, and today we are talking about Final Destination Bloodlines, entry number 6 in this franchise. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, particularly because I am a fan of Final Destination. These movies are very nostalgic for me, and reviving horror franchises has been very hit or miss lately, but I was cautiously optimistic going into Bloodlines. So, did it deliver? Does it add anything new? Is it worth seeing in theaters? Let's discuss. Haunted by a violent, recurring nightmare, college student Stephanie heads home to track down the one person who might know what's going on with her grandmother, Iris. The real question is, though, can she break the cycle and save her family from the horrible fate that seems to await them all? As we saw in the trailer, the opening incident premonition actually happens in the 60s this time around, with Iris saving people at the Skyview restaurant tower, but the main story takes place in present day because Death is hunting down Iris's descendants, the family that was never meant to exist. Hence the title, Final Destination Bloodlines. Death has clearly been taking its time with this one, okay? This family aspect is the main new spin this movie is putting on the familiar formula, along with the opening premonition not tying directly into the order in which the characters die, because none of Iris's descendants are a part of that. Now, you might think that breaks the rules established earlier in the franchise, because as far as we know, new life defeats death. That's one of the ways to escape it. But there is a technicality here that makes it make sense. The rest of the movie follows the familiar structure pretty closely, though. We have the opening incident, we have a character figuring out what's going on, the kill order is established, and then Death starts getting creative while our characters try their best to survive. So let's talk about those kills, because that's what the franchise is all about. That's why we're all here. And don't worry, I am not going to spoil anything that's not in the trailers, but let me tell you, if you're hoping for some memorable, elaborate setups, you will not be disappointed. First up, the opening premonition, the foundation of every Final Destination film. Here we are in 1968, Ring of Fire is ominously playing on the radio. This movie continues the tradition of using music well, and Iris saves people from a fiery disaster. This scene also sets up a long ongoing bit with a penny that's fun to keep an eye out for. And I'm not saying you're going to leave this movie with a fear of spare change, but then again, these films are notorious for making you scared of things you would have never otherwise been worried about. As far as opening incidents go, this one is pretty good. It's definitely memorable, even though it's not my favorite. I think the highway pileup from Final Destination 2 will forever hold that spot. It also kind of made me wish we actually saw the movie about those characters from the 60s and took advantage of this entirely different setting, but oh well. As for the actual death scenes, this movie definitely has a few real standouts of the entire series. We saw a lot of the barbecue scene in the trailer, and that's one of the best parts of the movie. I wish they didn't spoil as much of it, but still, great buildup, great tension, great payoff. Same goes for the tattoo shop sequence, definitely one of the standout scenes in the movie, so I get why they wanted to showcase it in the teaser, but again, it would have been nice not to know how it unfolds. Thankfully, they did keep the best and the most nightmare-inducing scene out of the promotional materials, though. To keep things vague, it's the scene that happens at the hospital, and you will know it when you see it, because that was a lot. There is also a lot of pretty quick splatter in this one, and unfortunately, the CGI there is just not the best. Overall, CGI is a problem in this movie. The visual effects are not amazing. Let's call them nostalgic because it feels like we're back in the 2000s with that. I really wish they leaned into practical effects more like they did in the first 3 films, or at least worked with the lighting a bit to mask it better. Here, I had the issue of the effects taking me out of some of these scenes, similar to the 4th and the 5th movies. And that's a shame because Bloodlines knows how to build suspense, how to get nasty and make you squirm with some of these kills, but then the others look so obviously fake, and when the visuals don't hold up, the impact just doesn't hit as hard. Speaking of things having less of an impact, I do also wish they did not go as far into comedy horror as they did. I don't know what's going on with horror movies lately, but they have really been leaning into humor, and personally, I just don't love that. That's a matter of personal preference, of course, and Final Destination movies have gotten progressively more unserious as the franchise went on, but with Bloodlines, they really stepped up the comedy. Even the color palette is brighter than usual, which adds to that more playful tone. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun. It's definitely entertaining, especially when the movie slows down and takes its time to build suspense, but the atmosphere was a bit lacking for my taste. There was this sense of foreboding in previous movies, particularly in the earlier entries, that just was missing here. What does work really well, though, is how the movie approaches bringing back a popular franchise. Regardless of any of my criticisms, I loved the throwback of it all, and to me, this is throwback done right. It's not a lesser copy of something older. It's not acting like it's better than the expected tropes or too clever for the genre. It's not stuck in that constant state of winking at the audience. Can't stand that. The filmmakers just knew why the audience loves the franchise, and they gave that to the fans while also adding to the lore and putting a bit of a fresh spin on things. Other franchises should learn from this instead of trying to reinvent the wheel or destroying everything the fans love. Because despite its flaws, and honestly, in some cases because of them, this feels like a Final Destination movie. It works as a part of this series. And it's absolutely the kind of movie where if you're a fan of the franchise, you're going to have a good time with it. And if you're not, Bloodlines is not going to change your mind. Now, I know a lot of you are wondering, are there Easter eggs, callbacks, significant tie-ins? And the answer is yes and no. There are plenty of Easter eggs for the fans, but nothing that requires you to remember all of the specific details of previous films to understand what's going on. It's more of that if you know kind of thing. That said, there is a particularly heavy focus on Final Destination 2, which I'm a big fan of. We do have Tony Todd returning once again for his final appearance in the franchise, and his send-off was beautifully done. His last goodbye is delivered directly to the fans, and the words he speaks were actually his own. The directors asked him to put the script down and just speak from the heart, and honestly, it was unforgettable. People were applauding, some were tearing up. It was just a perfect, heartfelt way to say goodbye to a legend. As for the characters overall, they were fine. Most of them were not all that memorable, with Richard Harmon as Eric being the clear standout. The movie does try to build some emotional weight, especially since this time around all the characters are family, but aside from a couple of nice sibling moments, I don't think it did enough to really establish those relationships or make the audience feel for them as a family. At the end of the day, though, Final Destination Bloodlines is a gory, fun time, which is ultimately what the fans are here for. It brings back the classic formula, the inventive kills, and adds just enough of a new spin to keep things interesting. It's not perfect, but it absolutely understands the assignment, even if it fumbles the effects. Bloodlines doesn't try to modernize Final Destination into something it's not. It just gets what makes these movies fun and leans in. The setups, the suspense, the gruesome payoffs, and of course, the ridiculous paranoia you leave with over the most mundane situations. Let me know in the comments, what is the biggest new fear this franchise has left you with? That said, it is long, by far the longest film in the franchise, and you feel that runtime. And yet, weirdly, with all that build-up, the ending somehow feels less satisfying than usual. Even with all of that extra time, I still felt less invested in the characters than I did in the previous entries, and some of the deaths ended up feeling rushed. But again, it still is a great time for the fans, and if you get the chance, definitely see this with an audience. Watching it in a packed theater full of people who know and love the franchise was unforgettable. It instantly took me back to seeing Final Destination 2 in theaters, the first one I ever watched. We don't get a lot of those communal movie experiences anymore, but horror fans still show up, and the love for this franchise is real. Like, I don't think I've ever heard the audience cheer for a kid's death, and I know this sounds horrible, but it was appropriate, okay? More importantly though, no one is going to forget Tony Todd's beautiful, heartfelt send-off. Thank you for the chills, the voice, and the legendary nightmares.